Susan Sarandon, for those of you, you know her as an actress, but some people also know of her as an activist. Susan Sarandon has been an activist for quite some time. She was also a Bernie supporter. She was very, progressive, but also willing to criticize progressives when needed. She also protested outside of AOC's office. I think this was over a year and a half ago, if I remember correctly. So she is an activist on the ground. And now it appears that her activism for Palestine, for the Palestinians in Gaza, has just cost her her talent agency, actually. Let's go ahead and get into this story. UTA dropped Susan Sarandon as client following recent anti-Semitic remarks she made at a rally in New York. Now, I just want to go ahead and say here, the comments that Susan Sarandon made were not anti-Semitic. Let's go ahead and get that out of the way. But you guys see what's already starting to happen, right? So Hollywood's going to blackball her, I think, the same way that they did Rose McGowan. Let's continue. After making controversial remarks at a recent pro-Palestinian rally in New York City, Susan Sarandon has been dropped by UTA as a client. A spokesman from the agency has confirmed. The Dead Man Walking Oscar winner has been present at several pro-Palestinian rallies where she made several remarks that included, there are a lot of people afraid of being Jewish at this time and are getting a taste of what it feels like to be a Muslim in this country. She also went on to repost on X a pro-Palestinian post from Pink Floyd Roger Waters, who has been criticized over the years for his anti-Semitic remarks. Again, Roger Waters is not making anti-Semitic remarks. This is very, very dangerous. That someone's entire career can just be ruined. They can lose their jobs, lose their agencies. And it's not just her. But this is happening across the board. People, students that are graduating from college, already rejected from job offers. We are living in a very dangerous time. And I can tell you this much. Nobody seems to get this kind of heat when they do offensive things towards Black people or even killing Black people. I'll give you a couple examples. The police officer that shot Oscar Grant in the back when he was laying on his stomach on the ground with his hands handcuffed behind his back, served 1 year. No problem getting another job. That's something I want you to think about. How people can just go on with their lives. The police officers that beat Rodney King got off the first time, brought him back the second time. Technically, that would be considered double jeopardy, but I guess because of the situation, they made an exception. Brought them back the second time, served very little jail time. Afterwards, had no problem getting a job. It goes on to say Sarandon being dropped from UTA is another instance in recent weeks of talent agencies making tough decisions when it comes to clients or agents making public statements on the war in Israel. Last month, CAA co-head of film, Maha Dakhil, resigned from the agency's board after she reposted an Instagram story that said, "You're currently learning who supports genocide." So I'm going to show you a video of Susan Sarandon in just a second, but I do want to say this. Because the thing is, it's not just happening to Susan Sarandon. It's happening to students. It's happening to graduates. It has gotten to the point now where you can't even criticize the government. You can't criticize the government of Israel without people saying that you're anti-Semitic. Some people can't criticize Netanyahu. Far right-wing extremist Netanyahu. Now it's okay to criticize Trump and keep your job, but you criticize Netanyahu, now it's not okay to keep your job. We have to get lobbyists out of DC. None of these politicians should answer to lobbyists. None of these politicians should answer to corporate interests or to the military industrial complex. None of them should answer to AIPAC. None of these organizations. The only people they should be answering to is their constituents. And this wasn't always the case. So if they can release someone as talented and someone as big as Susan Sarandon, she's a huge star. How many of you remember Susan Sarandon from Rocky Horror Picture Show? How many? She's been acting for years. She's an Oscar winner. If they can release her, they can release anyone. I want to show you one of the speeches that she gave at one of the protests. Now, this is from Laura. She's part of Red Berets. She said, Susan Sarandon is a powerful movement voice for truth, love, and justice. With her consistency and unwavering solidarity, she is healing us. That was another thing. Susan Sarandon's also part of the Healing Us documentary. She supported Medicare for all. Like I said, she's been an activist for a long time. Listen to this.
Stand here in my cruelly given white privilege to say that you don't have to be Palestinian to stand with the Palestinian people. You do not have to be Palestinian to understand that the slaughter of almost 5,000 children is unacceptable and a war crime. You do not have to be Palestinian to understand that war crimes are being delivered every single day, according to the UN and other humanitarian groups. This is a time for education, because as a previous speaker mentioned, so many people do not understand the context in which this October 7th assault happened. They don't understand the history of what has been happening to the Palestinian people for 75 years.
Yep. And also mainstream media doesn't want you to know about that history either. That's why you don't hear them bring it up. That's why you won't see them bring on people who want to bring it up.
This is an opportunity to educate people if they can have an open mind. If you can get beyond the tribal instincts that have separated us now for so long. It's time to have an open heart. It's time to be strong, and it's time that Palestine be free.
So Leroy says, Susan clapping at Sagar without realizing she is. Remember when he read, like, you're not even Palestinian, why do you care? He's a wild snake. Yeah. So yeah, right. You don't have to be Palestinian to care about the Palestinian people's, suffering and their self-determination. Just like you didn't have to be Black to care about the civil rights movement. And I think that we are seeing something happen here. And I think a lot of people are becoming more fearful, but I want you to know this is exactly what they want to happen. They want you to become afraid. They want you to be afraid to speak out. They tried to make, I want to give you an example, someone they tried to make an example out of before. How do they try to threaten your free speech? They tried to make an example out of people like Julian Assange, Daniel Hale, Mumia. How do they try to threaten your right to organize and protect your own people and not worry about the government? How did they do that? How did they fight back against that? They went after the Black Panther Party. So this is what they do. And you're going to see more of this happening. You're going to see more people being fired, more people being canceled to put fear into you so that you're like, oh God, I don't want to do anything or say anything because I don't want anything to happen to me. But she's been an activist for a long time. And some of you may have met her. I know some of you, I saw pictures before where some of you were at some events that she was at in New York before. March for Medicare for All. She participated in that as well. Like, she's a real one. Dana says Susan Sarandon rocks. Yeah, she's a real one. I will say at least she shows up. Like, she does show up to those things. She showed up to those events, the Medicare for All marches, right? She showed up to those events when our politicians, like squad members, did not. She was there. She doesn't have to do this. I want people to understand Susan Sarandon does not have to do this. She can just live a cushy, lavish lifestyle and just engage in the Hollywood theatrics and just grab her bag and just hush all the noise. She doesn't have to go out and protest. She doesn't have to be an activist. She doesn't have to try to fight for any of these things. And her life would actually be much easier if she did that. It would be much easier for her if she just pretended these things were not going on, like a lot of celebrities do. But if they can release her, someone with that resume, they can release anyone. Let me go to some of the comments here. JB said, yep, Susan is what we call a class traitor. She has solidarity with workers and the poor. Thank you so much for that. Steve says Susan hits the streets. Yes, she does. Let me go to some of the comments here. JB also said, this is a new McCarthy era for anyone that speaks out against Israel. Here we go. Here we go. Thank you for the super chat, Kush Renata. Taking people's jobs and money for not running with the narrative is not just a pandemic thing. Also, just like the jab, they will change actual definitions. Thank you for the super chat, Raphael. Nope, this is a sign they know they are losing. This is a sign they know they are losing. Sherry says she uses her platform for good, right? Z Manny says, I remember when Susan Sarandon and Tim Robbins were calling out the Guantanamo Bay detention during the Oscars. Oh, yeah, I forgot about that. And thank you for this super chat, Raphael. Sister, give me your perspective. Do you think Malcolm and Martin knew a day would come when the South African president would give a speech like this, like the one this morning by himself, for real? I do. I think they knew that this day was coming. I also think that they knew that they would probably not be around for it. Also think that's why we don't have any more revolutionary leaders after that. Because they decided to remove our revolutionary leaders, right? But yeah, Susan is on Twitter. Go give her a shout out. Show her some love, because that's wild. I mean, honestly, if I was Susan, I would just tell UTA, look, you're dropping me? Okay, cool. I'll start my own company. There you go. Start your own production company and make it a workers co-op.